ready, Lisa? We're on. In talking about title and public records, some of this stuff will actually be familiar to you at this point. For example, when we talk about recording, let's go back and test you from last week. In regards to essential elements of a valid deed, do you have to record a deed for it to be valid? You do not have to record a deed for it to be valid. Sounds kind of weird, but we have an act in North Carolina that says you probably should record. What's that act called? It's called the Connor Act. The Connor Act says if you will record, and here's the important point. Why do we record? We record to protect ourselves from, or our title, from third-party claims. We protect it, we record to protect the title from third-party claims. In other words, if you do a title search on a property and see that I own 1515 Sycamore Street, are you going to loan Sarah money on 1515 Sycamore Street? No. If you're going to loan anybody money, it would be me, right? So we record to protect ourselves from third-party claims. Does that sound familiar? Perfect. Notice, when we talk about notice, here's what I want you to write down. I bet it comes up in just a minute, but since I can't remember, I'm going to go ahead and talk about it now. Recording provides constructive notice. Recording provides constructive notice, and you can underline the word constructive. That's the one I was trying to get to. Recording provides constructive notice. Recording provides constructive notice. Listen, if you want to know anything about my property, do you remember in class on Friday, I pulled up my tax information, and you can find almost anything you want to know about my property. Why can you find it out? Because it's public information. When we recorded these documents, they became public information. Recording provides constructive notice. If you want to know something about my property, go look at it at the Register of Deeds in the county where the property is located. Not necessarily where I am, but in the county where the property is located. Okay? Constructive notice. Priority. Do you remember the significance of priority when it comes to the Connor Act? The Connor Act made North Carolina a pure race state in regards to recordation. A first mortgage is considered first, not because it's biggest and best, because it was recorded when? First. And then you have junior mortgages that would fall below that. Priority. You okay with that? All right, let's test you then. You're saying okay, but let's see if you really are. What lien will always jump to the front of the list? Your real property tax lien will always jump to the front of the list, right? It has an exception in regards to priority. And then we talked about a lien on Friday that has the ability to jump other liens. Do you remember what type of lien has the ability? A mechanic's lien, because its lien priority will go all the way back to the what day? First day of delivery of goods and services, if you'll record within how many days? 120 days of the last day of delivery of goods and services. But outside of those two exceptions, pretty much everything else is going to be, its priority is going to be based on when it's recorded. Feel good about that? Unrecorded documents doesn't mean you don't owe them the money, but if they're not recorded, they're not going to have any priority. They won't. If it's a lien and it's not recorded, it's not going to have a lien priority. You still owe them the money. And for right now, we'll talk about the chain of title. It'll come up a little bit later. Don't write this down now. I'll give you a chance to write it down later. But the chain of title is just the successive conveyances to a title to property. The successive conveyances of title to property. I got the property from Virginia. She had to get it somewhere. She got it from Melissa. Melissa had to get it somewhere. She got it from Victor. Boom, boom, boom. Chain of title. Now, after having said all that, I think we already talked about these issues. See if this looks familiar to you. Legal priority of interest recorded, first in time, first in right, blah, blah, blah. Feel good about that? Constructive notice, we talked about. Actual notice, we didn't talk a whole lot about. But if you see somebody living in a house, you know, there's a certain presumption that they have rights to either possession or title of the property. Priority, we talked about. Oh, you already have all these notes. Okay. Let me stop there for just a minute. Chain of title, I'm not going to change anything I said, but I did tell you I'd give you a chance to write this down and when I got to it. So chain of title, the successive conveyances to the title of property is the chain of title. And each particular conveyance is typically referred to as a link in the chain of title. Chain of title, the successive conveyances to a parcel of land, to a title. That's actually not a bad definition, it's up there, so you can use that. Why is a chain of title important? Well, because when I'm getting title from Virginia, I want to make sure that I have good title to the property. Well, if she received good title from Melissa, then she had good title to pass on. If Melissa received good title from Victor, she had good title to pass on. That's why. Now, as a real estate agent, are you doing this? Are you doing a title search? Real estate agents are not doing title search. This is what the attorneys and paralegals are doing in the background. I did want to stop here for 1 second, though. There's a cryptic note down on the bottom, and I wanted to give you some verbiage to go with this. They talk about it, usually title searches are at least 30 years. There's a reason that title searches go back at least 30 years in many cases. This is what I want you to write down. The Marketable Title Act. The Marketable Title Act. Marketable Title Act. Spelled just like it sounds, actually, okay? Here's what I want you to write down about the Marketable Title Act. It seeks to establish a 30-year statute of limitations. Statute of limitations. Statute of limitations on claims on title. The purpose of the Marketable Title Act is to establish a 30-year statute of limitations on claims on title. In other words, if you have a claim on this property and you haven't made it in the last 30 years, shame on you. We have an act in North Carolina that seeks to eliminate those claims. That's the only thing I want you to know about this act. There are multiple exceptions, exemptions to the Marketable Title Act, of which you don't have to know any of them, okay? So what's the association I want you to know at the end of this little piece right here? Most title searches go back at least how long?
30 years.
30 years. What's the purpose of what's significant about 30 years? The Marketable Title Act. If you can show clear title for 30 years, in theory, this act will help you clear some of the older titles. So let me ask you this question. Are you ready for a hard one this morning? It's only Monday morning, so this might be difficult. Do you remember talking about the general warranty deed? In a general warranty deed, the seller said, I will defend you against what claims? All claims whatsoever, going back as far in time as ever. Okay? But under a special warranty deed, I would basically defend you for how long? As long as I had possession of the property. Well, what if I had possession of the property for 40 years? Okay? When you combine a special warranty deed of greater than 40 or greater than 30 years actually, with this act right here, it essentially has the same effect. Basically, we're saying we have clear title on this property. Does that make sense to you, Jen? You see where I was going with that? Okay. Just a little bit of fun with numbers. Questions or comments on the Marketable Title Act? It's a level 1. It's another one of those M words. We're starting to build up a lot of M words now. Machinery Act. Machinery Act had to do with what? Do you remember that from an earlier chapter? No. Machinery Act had to do with real property. Who said that? Real property taxes. Mechanics lien had to do with contractors, right? And now I'm throwing in the Marketable Title Act. It seeks to establish a 30-year statute of limitations on claims on title. Okay? We'll throw some more M words in there later just to see if you're paying attention. Now notice when we talk about title assurance. When we talk about title assurance is more than just title insurance. When you convey property seller, the buyer wants what is known as marketable title. So when you look at these tenets of marketable title, if I buy your property, will I ultimately be able to sell it if I choose to in the future for a retail price? So marketable title includes this. There are no significant liens or encumbrances on the property. And do you remember I talked about liens and encumbrances? There's always going to be encumbrances on a property. What we're talking about, there are no significant liens that are going to detract from the value of the property. If there are a buyer, you have a right to know. Okay? There are no serious flaws. In other words, we're not missing co-owners who haven't signed in the chain of title. Okay? So there are no serious defects. No questions of law, no list pendants on the property that would affect the validity of it. The promise of quiet enjoyment to the grantee, preferably the general warranty deed where the seller says, I'll defend you forever. And then you should be reasonably assured of market value. Let me give you one example of this. Don't take a ton of notes because I don't think we're going to go here for test purposes. But having said that, if I own property in severalty, and then I get married, how do I now hold title to the property? I still hold property in severalty. It's just that my wife now has a marital right. Do you remember that? A marital right. Do you remember talking about this? If you list my property, I would highly recommend that you get not only my signature as the owner, but also her signature waiving her marital right in that particular property. If someone were to buy the property from just me, with just my signature on the property, she didn't sign it, the problem is she has this cloud that's on the title as long as we're married, and she technically has a death right up to 1/3 of the value of the property. I'm not saying she's ever going to use it. I'm not saying it's going to be problematic. However, having said that, I don't know if you can be assured of market value when you get ready to sell that property. Because if we're both alive and still married, and she never waived her interest in the property, she can come back at any time. That might, assuming we don't get divorced. At my death, she can come back and make a claim against that property. So when we talk about things that could cloud the title, these are examples of that. Marketable title. That's what we're talking about here. You know who's going to take care of this? Let the attorneys take care of this, okay? More title assurance. How do you know that you had clear title? Well, here's one way that you know that you had clear title. There was a title search done. We talked a little bit about the chain of title. The title search is done. Here's what's important. Write it down or don't write it down if you understand this completely. Who can legally do a title search? Who can legally do a title search? The answer is anyone. The answer is anyone can legally do a title search. Oftentimes it's paralegals or legal assistants who do it. Technically anybody can do a title search. But it doesn't come up here, but let me write this off to the side. But only an attorney can write an opinion of title. Anybody can do a title search, but only an attorney can write an opinion of title. An opinion of title is a legal opinion. Let me give you a brief idea of what this looks like. The paralegal or legal assistant is going to go to the courthouse and they're going to do a title search. And basically what they're looking for is, Virginia wants to sell me this property. How did she come into acquisition of the property? She came into acquisition from Melissa. Was that a good and valid conveyance? If so, then that's good. She got it from Victor. So the paralegal is looking all this up. The paralegal then writes up an abstract of title. And the abstract of title is just a written history of what's happened with this property. Because keep in mind, certainly the deed transferences were one thing, but couldn't there have been some quitclaim deeds issued? There could have been some title issues that were being dealt with. There could have been some marriages, divorces, deaths, all this type stuff. So what the paralegals are doing is they're searching the public records, and then they're writing this abstract. The attorney will take the abstract and they'll read it, the history of this title, and then they will write their opinion based on the abstract, okay? So the attorney says, based on our research on this, we believe that you have clear and marketable title. That is our opinion. Based on that opinion, now I want you to think about this for just a second. The seller told you they had good title. Do you trust the seller? No. Well, I have no reason to not trust them. But it's only, I doubt seriously that they have a good technical knowledge of law. But you know what, it's nice that they said they had good title. Then we had the title search done by the paralegal and the opinion by the attorney. Do you trust the attorney? Yeah, I kind of trust my attorney, but can attorneys make mistakes? Not only can attorneys make mistakes, but they also might miss something in the public records, like a forgery. How would an attorney know that there was a forgery 20 years ago? Okay, they're not handwriting experts, right? So that could come up. So then finally, when we talk about title assurance, we get to what's known as title insurance. Okay, so title insurance. This is difficult. Don't write this down yet. Let's figure out how to brief this. Okay. When you're at the settlement meeting with your buyer, the buyers want to know where their money went in the transaction. Okay. When you look on the seller side, you only see a few things. At the settlement table, the seller usually pays for the commission, what's known as the excise tax, and they also pay for the preparation of a deed. You look on the buyer side, there's going to be like 50 things on the buyer side. Do you realize that a buyer might look on the settlement statement and see the word insurance come up in 6 different spots? They may pay their first year of insurance in advance of their homeowner's insurance in advance, and then they may have to pay 2 months for an escrow account. So they see it here and here. But that's easy to explain. Okay? What does homeowner's insurance cover you for? What does homeowner's insurance cover? Let's make it simple. If your house burns down, that's what homeowner's insurance is for. If your house burns down or gets blown away by a tornado, that's what homeowner's insurance covers, and then whatever else you choose to cover as well, right? That's easy to explain. Everybody understands you have to have homeowner's insurance. How about mortgage insurance? It's possible that the buyer may pay some upfront mortgage insurance and then also some on a monthly basis as well. So they may see that come up in 2 different locations. We haven't talked about it yet, but do any of you know what mortgage insurance is for? Well, it's not Aflac. If you die, you can't go to work. No. But you're on the right trail. What private mortgage insurance is for is a lot of people can't put 20% down payment, right? You're buying a $400,000 house. Gosh, that's an $80,000 down payment. Everybody can't do that. So the bank says, if we're going to take a chance on you because you're putting less than 20% down, and there's plenty of loans that you can do this, but you're going to have to pay mortgage insurance. Mortgage insurance protects the bank, not you. You pay it, but mortgage insurance protects the bank just in case you ever are in default of your loan. Okay, mortgage insurance will make the bank whole if you default. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to pay that to protect the bank. Well, that's fine. Put 20% down. You don't have to. Okay? So they may be paying mortgage insurance. Mortgage insurance could be upfront, but it also could be monthly as well, depending on what type of mortgage insurance that you have. Okay? Could come up in 2 places on the settlement statement. And then title insurance. Listen to this. Title insurance. The buyer says, all right, I've had to pay a binder of title insurance, and now I'm getting charged the rest of it down here. So title insurance shows up in 2 places on the settlement statement. They say, what's title insurance? Listen to this definition. Title insurance. Well, it's to protect you against third-party claims against title. The buyer's not going to have any idea what you mean. Protecting against third-party claims, what do you mean? Well, no one's going to come back and say that they have superior right of ownership on the property. They're never going to understand what title insurance is for. But that's what it's for. You want to hear some good news about title insurance? It's cheap. It's cheap. Title insurance is, please write this down. Title insurance is a one-time upfront fee paid by the buyer. One-time upfront fee paid by the buyer to give you an idea of its cost, and we won't test you on the cost because it could be a competitive price, but it typically runs around $2 per thousand of sale price. So on a $400,000 policy, it's only going to cost you $800. Okay, so it's not a dramatic amount of money. Once you pay it, you never have to pay it again. Title insurance. What's title insurance for? To protect you against third-party claims that were not picked up through this diligence that we just talked about. The seller didn't know that there was some type of defect in title. He wasn't lying to you. He didn't know. The attorney did a diligent search, but maybe they missed something, or maybe there was something in the past that they could not have picked up. So the seller didn't cover it, the attorney didn't cover it. That's why you buy title insurance.
Every buyer has to have
Say again?
it? Every buyer has to have it?
Every buyer should have it, okay? And if you have a mortgage, I promise you that the bank will require you to have it. Title insurance policies, you can buy them to cover the lender, okay? And like I said, if you have a loan, you're absolutely buying the lender's policy. I would recommend that your buyer opt to buy the owner coverage as well. But think about the owner's coverage. The owner's coverage only has to protect their equity. You know, if there's a lien holder out there with a 95% mortgage on the property, the bank's the one that has the most risk, to be quite honest with you. So there's a lender policy, there's an owner policy, and then you also have the potential of buying a tenant policy. Think about a commercial tenant who may have spent a bunch of money on an upfit on a property, so they could be protected by title insurance policy as well. What do I really want you to know at the end of the day about title assurance? There's a bunch of stuff going on in the background to make sure that you will not be affected by third-party claims. You will have quiet enjoyment of your property, right? Seller said so, attorney said so, I bought title insurance just in case, okay? Contract we have talked about several times, and of course, recording your property makes the world aware that it's your property. Don't deal with anybody else on this property. Once I record it in my name, you should only be dealing through me. Yeah, Jen?
I have a question about title insurance.
Okay,
So
Lisa, you can stop that for a
they
minute.
have